He wasn't supposed to be in that room. A janitor with scuffed boots and a broken mop wheel stood 5 feet from a $1 billion mistake, just listening. And when the CEO dismissed him with a single look, he said 4 words that stopped everything. That number's not right. Drop a comment below. Have you ever seen someone underestimated until they proved everyone wrong? Hit subscribe if you're ready for stories where ordinary people flip the whole system upside down. Marcus had been mopping the same corner of the 42nd floor conference suite for 27 minutes. Not because it needed cleaning. No, that floor was spotless. But because he wasn't supposed to hear what he was hearing. His cart was parked beside a water cooler that no one had touched all morning. The mop in his hand wasn't even wet anymore. But Marcus knew, from the tight shoulders, the hushed voices, the rows of $5,000 suits lining up like dominoes, that something big was happening on the other side of the glass. 12 executives, one whiteboard, one giant mistake, and him. A janitor with a GED, a limp from a busted knee back in '92, and a resume no one in that room would ever read. He shouldn't have said anything. That's what the little voice in his head kept repeating, louder with every second. Don't talk. Don't move. Don't exist. But then the youngest exec, glasses too big for his face, fingers trembling as he circled a number in red, said, "If we lock it at 4.2%, we're solid. Guaranteed ROI." That number hit Marcus like a slap. He flinched, not visibly, not outwardly, but inside, something cracked open. He'd seen that number before. 15 years ago when he was still working at Sorrento and Beck as a temp analyst. Before the layoffs, before the wrong badge color landed him in a jumpsuit. That number wasn't just off. It was fatal. He stared at the red circle on the whiteboard, then at the men and women nodding around it. And finally, at the CEO, Carson Lane, polished, silver-haired, with a laugh that never quite reached his eyes. The kind of man who called everyone partner, but never remembered your name unless you made him money. Marcus shifted his weight, and the mop squeaked against the tile. Every head turned like he'd shouted. Carson's eyes locked onto him like crosshairs. "You good?" the CEO asked, voice sharp as ice. Marcus froze. His fingers clutched the mop handle like it was the only thing tethering him to earth. And then, before he could stop himself, before the fear could mute him, he said, "That number's not right." The silence in the room was immediate and full of teeth. "Excuse me?" Carson's voice flattened. Marcus took a breath, mouth dry. "If you lock at 4.2% with current burn rates, you'll tank the reserves by Q3. Your vendor backlog alone can't sustain that margin." No one spoke. Someone coughed. Another shuffled a paper just to make sound. Then laughter. A chuckle, clipped and condescending, from one of the VPs at the far end of the table. "Did our janitor just audit our financial model?" she asked, smiling. Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't. His heartbeat was pounding in his teeth. Carson didn't laugh. He just looked at Marcus like he was looking through him, and then, slowly, walked to the glass door and opened it. "You can go now." That was it. No thank you. No question. Just an exit. Marcus nodded, rolled his cart forward. The mop wheel squeaked again. As he passed the table, someone muttered under their breath, "These people think just because they clean up after us, they can speak up too." Marcus didn't turn, but that sentence stuck, like bleach under the nails, like rust in the mop bucket. We're just getting started, but what happens next? It only gets tighter. Stay tuned to see how Marcus handles what he was never supposed to witness. Have you ever been shut down for speaking up at work? Drop your experience in the comments. Want more stories where janitors, couriers, and baristas challenge the system? Hit that subscribe button. By the next morning, the mop closet was locked. Marcus found out when he arrived at 5:42 a.m. like always, and his keycard beeped red for the first time in 12 years. No explanation. No one to talk to. Just a silent hallway and a glowing keypad that suddenly didn't recognize him. He stood there staring at the door like it might apologize, like it might open just from the weight of his frustration. Then came the voice. "Marcus, you're not assigned to this floor anymore." It was Sandra, HR, always smiling like she knew a secret. She didn't even look up from her tablet when she said it. "New rotation," she added, tapping her screen. "You're on lower loading bays this week, basement level." He opened his mouth to ask why, but stopped himself. That question wouldn't be welcomed. Not from someone who held a mop instead of a spreadsheet. Instead, he nodded, muttered a quiet, "Got it," and headed for the service elevator. The basement stank of diesel and silence. No windows, no noise, no people. Just endless crates, forklifts, and the occasional rumble from the HVAC overhead. He scrubbed concrete for hours, alone. But Marcus wasn't the same man he'd been the day before. That moment in the boardroom, seeing every face turn when he spoke, hearing the mockery, the tension, it had done something to him. It made the years of invisibility heavier, sharper. He kept replaying it in his mind. That red-circled number. The stunned silence. Carson's stare. Something was wrong. Not just with the math, with all of it. At lunch, he didn't eat. Instead, he dug through a dented storage crate until he found his old messenger bag, still stashed behind a wall panel in the sub-basement from the days he worked double shifts. Inside, an ancient, cracked tablet. Dead, dusty, and silent. He plugged it in anyway. 15 minutes later, it blinked to life. Spreadsheets, notes, a Logan from his old Sorrento and Beck consulting days. Expired, but he knew how to spoof the access. He started digging. Vendor invoices, projection models, internal memos. The numbers weren't just off. They were massaged, backloaded, glossed. Whoever had built the financial model for the acquisition upstairs hadn't just made a mistake. They'd carefully buried it. And everyone in that room either didn't notice or didn't care. The rage didn't come all at once. It crept in, like mold under paint. By the end of the shift, Marcus knew two things. One, the company was hurtling toward a billion-dollar mistake. Two, nobody upstairs would listen to a janitor, not unless he gave them no choice. The next day, he showed up with a new mop bucket. But inside it, not just cleaning supplies. Taped beneath the false bottom was a slim folder. Printed reports, highlighted pages, a cover sheet that read, "Reconciled Financial Risk Summary." He rolled it to the 42nd floor like nothing had changed, like he still had clearance. The new janitor on duty gave him a weird look but didn't stop him. He waited. He timed it. He watched through the crack in the double doors as Carson and his exec team poured coffee, made jokes, and prepped the screen for another round of decisions. When the CFO stepped out to take a call, Marcus slipped in. Quiet. Quick. Calm. He placed the folder at the end of the conference table. Then, before anyone could react, he tapped his knuckle on the glass and said, "You missed something." They stared at him like he was dripping with sewage. Carson rose from his seat. "What do you think you're doing?" Marcus looked him dead in the eye. "Fixing your math. Again." "We're at the breaking point. What happens next isn't just unexpected, it flips the whole room. Stay to see what goes down when the janitor takes the floor. Want to see how this ends? Don't miss what happens in Chapter 3. I hit that subscribe button. Ever had to fight the system just to be heard? Tell us how you did it in the comments." The room froze. Carson didn't speak. He just stared at Marcus like he was watching a piece of chewing gum stand up and talk. Someone, probably Lauren from legal, half laughed like it was a prank. But nobody joined her, because the folder was right there. Real. Paper. Heavy with ink and intent. And Marcus? He didn't flinch. He stood with one hand on the mop bucket like it was a podium. Eyes steady, shoulders squared, no apology, no backup. Carson's voice finally broke the silence. "You're interrupting a confidential meeting." Marcus didn't blink. "And you're gambling with people's jobs. I'm just interrupting bad math." A murmur rippled across the table. One of the analysts, the youngest, probably barely out of grad school, opened the folder. His brow furrowed. He flipped to the second page, then the third. Lauren leaned over, whispered something sharp. The kid shook his head. I think this is right," he said. "These projections, they're more accurate than the model we used." Carson snatched the folder. He scanned the first page, lips tightening. Marcus watched him hit the wall of numbers like a speeding car meets a brick. "You hacked internal systems," Carson growled, low and tight. "I used data no one bothered to check," Marcus shot back. "You don't need clearance to see the truth. You just have to stop pretending it's not there." Silence. Then the CEO, Ms. Glasser, finally spoke. She'd said nothing until now, just watched. Cold, composed, calculating. Carson, she said, is it accurate? Carson didn't answer. The intern, still flipping pages, did. If this is correct, the merger would have cost us $1.3 billion in the first year alone. Someone gasped. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't move, just waited. Ms. Glasser rose slowly, picked up the folder, walked toward Marcus. She stopped a foot from him. Who are you? She asked quietly. Custodial, he said. But I used to build financial models before people stopped seeing me. She looked at him like she was seeing him now for the very first time. Then she turned to Carson. You're done here. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. 48 hours later, the merger was off. A new internal auditing committee had been formed, chaired by someone from outside finance. Carson's office was cleared, his parking spot repainted, and Marcus still mopping floors. But now, people nodded when they passed him in the hall. The head of risk analysis asked for his opinion. The CEO emailed him directly. They offered him a job. Full-time, strategy. He declined. But he did ask for one thing. Give someone else a second look, even if they wear the wrong badge. The janitor didn't just clean floors, he cleaned up a billion-dollar mess and reminded them all who really keeps the company standing. If you've ever been underestimated, this story's for you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, smash that subscribe. We're just getting started.